Welcome to Marathon Champions, the podcast where running legends Benji Durden, Bill Rogers, and Ron Tabb share their timeless wisdom on marathon training and inspire listeners with their wealth of experience. These champions continue to impact the running world today.
So we're talking with Joan Hansen. So Joan basically started running after being a very successful swimmer, her and her sister, and finally in college. And we're talking about the fact that she mostly didn't like running when she started.
Hated it is the right word.
Joan, I said the same thing in college. I would finish up, I hate running. So it's kind of amazing how much you hate something. You have this love-hate relationship with it, but it sounds like that we were kind of in the same boat because, you think about the workouts that we used to do and it's just like, oh, you'd finish and, oh, I hate this. So, but you go back and do it again the next day.
Well, yeah. For me, Ron, it wasn't that it was the running itself that I hated. When we were very young, our brother ended up being the one who took us to swim practices because our parents owned a real estate company that just exploded. It went to many offices and they were successful. And so our brother, who's 6 years older, pretty much ruled the roost. And he 6'4.5" tall backstroke. Okay. Joy and I being now 5'4", but when he was ruling the roost, we were 4'6" and 60 pounds, and even smaller than that when we actually started swimming. And so you had a dynamic where he wanted us to help him with his paper route at 4:00 in the morning, and he did a double route. So he would ride the bike in the middle of the street, and Joy and I would run the newspapers up to the porches. And so he really didn't have much of a job other than just riding his bike in the middle of the street in a nice straight line. And we just executed this amazing running workout prior to going to a swim workout that would start at 5:00. So we went from running his paper route to then swimming, and then we go to school with wet hair, and then finish school, go back to workout again, and then go home, eat, do homework, and crash. And that was what we did. That was our existence. And so that conditioning was freaky. That made us world-class athletes. I don't recommend it.
How good was your brother?
Our brother would have been a world record holder. He would have been a world record holder. And I say this because he sabotaged himself. It was the late 60s. And of course, what do you do in the late 60s? You rebel against authority. How do you do that? You do everything possible to rebel. So you drink, smoke, take drugs, and stay up late. And so picture him smoking a cigarette prior to his race on deck to psych out his opponents, and then getting up there and swimming backstroke, and then finishing 18th in the world with that kind of, idiocracy, things that Joy and I, of course, steered away from. But he also, he was incredible with his abilities, but if he had a healthy lifestyle put into that swimming, it would have been even better. And so I know he would have ended up being a world record holder. His abilities were insane. The coach got upset with him because he would show up late a lot. And Coach Sluter of the Desert Rats also coached at ASU. So to put this into context, John started swimming at age 16, and a year later he got a full ride offer to ASU as a swimmer. And that's
not typical.
Insane. Yeah, that's insane. Joy and I, if we had run in high school with a team, we would have been recruited and could have gone wherever we wanted to. I think we would have been noticed, and they wouldn't have misspelled our name for 2 or 3 years while we were in college. They spelled our names Hanson for a long time, and so. But
you didn't do like I did. The newspaper misspelled my name, and I eventually gave up and changed it to that.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was Benjie when I entered college, and the local newspaper just kept dropping the E. And so finally I dropped the E too, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, I refused to change it. I was like, no, it's us. You'll get it some point. Yeah, so yeah, I thought it was quite funny. But yeah, John. So Coach Sluter got really upset. So this is actually going to be a little bit about our brother too, so you understand the dynamic we were
yeah. I
raised
mean,
with. But he would go late to practice or not show up because he was too wiped out. And then Coach Sluter told him that if he didn't get to practice, that he would end up not going to nationals, or I think there one time it was a trip to Hawaii, another time it was nationals. And so John showed up for the practice in the morning, and Schluter said, okay, John, get in the pool, no warm up. I'm going to have you swim in, let's say 200 backstroke. I'm going to have you swim 200 backstroke. And if you don't break the school record, you're not going. And so
he had to break the school record in a workout?
Yeah, without a warm up.
Well, did he do it?
So here he is swimming along, and as he's swimming along, Schluter's face is getting redder and redder, and he's pacing, and he's not giving him any feedback. He's just getting really angry. And at the very end, and stopwatches were very expensive back then. As soon as John touched, Schluter was red-faced and just shaking, and he slammed the watch down on the deck. It shattered, and he screamed, "You defy all laws of physiology!" And stormed off, and John had broken the school record with no warm-up. That's how
basically
amazing.
It showed he probably was not doing his best in general.
Well, his whole lifestyle was one of, the swimmers could smoke dope back then. And of course, you could do other drugs too. And so that was the environment my brother ended up in, which is too bad. I mean,
Well, runners
not all
were doing
sports
that
were like
too.
that.
It wasn't exclusively swimmers. Michel Zazie set the world record for the mile and then went over and lit up.
Well, he did.
And I know a number of
time.
road racers that would be stoned right after the road race. I mean, it was not an unusual environment, even for the runners.
Yeah, so that was unfortunately the late 60s, and that would have, if he had started actually in the 70s, I think it would have been better for him. Late 70s for sure, but that was just that was the time period that he went through. And so 18th in the world with smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and taking drugs.
Yeah.
I think that John's grades were really good. So I mean, he was a good student and he was a good athlete, but he was just wasted.
He was rebellious.
Yeah, unfortunately that happened. So, but we had a pool in the backyard, a 12-yard pool. And these anecdotes, the reason I share them is that it's pretty funny, but it also helps you understand what we put up with. We had a 12-yard pool in the backyard, and it was rectangular in shape. And then you had this fence that was a ways away. And John would have us first go out in the front yard, stand back to back. And the way that the grid is in Phoenix, that if you actually run the 3 blocks and go around in a rectangle, it's an entire mile. And so he would have us stand back to back, and he would set us off in opposite directions with the incentive of getting an ice cream cone or the punishment of doing an extra set in the pool. And so we would sprint this whole mile, and we would finish so close because we're equal. We're DNA that split, the egg split. We're equal, DNA, and so whoever won shared the ice cream, and the other one, we just did the set together. And so we would enjoy the ice cream, do the set, and then we'd go into the backyard for this workout. And one of the workouts he did, which was during the time when you don't go to swim practice, it's your break. He had us do centurions for a whole hour. And what that meant was we would dive into the pool, swim freestyle, flip turn, swim butterfly back, pull ourselves out of the pool, get on deck, do 10 men's push-ups, run to the fence, run back, dive in, and continue freestyle, flip turn, butterfly, pull out 10 push-ups, and then run to the fence and back. That was our workout for a whole hour. And that would be after the mile run in the front yard. And of course, the paper route early in the morning. And so we were conditioned machines, prepubescent conditioned machines. And then he did that so that he could wipe us out, so that we would end up just sitting in front of the TV. In the summertime, we would be, pretty much comatose. And he didn't
have to deal with you other than that.
Yeah. Smart boy.
Yeah.
So that was part of our childhood. It was pretty funny. And then he also had a thing because we started avoiding workouts. So every minute that we were late to practice, he would make us carry a boulder on the bottom of the pool. And the shallow end is not so bad because you're walking along and you can breathe. But we had a diving board, so it would get deep at the very end. And of course, you're going down and you're walking with the rock, and you have to swim up with the rock to get a breath. And as soon as your face comes out of the water, you immediately sink again. And so we could do about 3 minutes of late, 3 minutes late to practice and survived that. Yeah, that was our brother.
Okay, well, let's jump to your collegiate running.
Okay.
So how long before you really, they started recognizing you had, good running talent?
Well, I broke the school record right away. Joy and I both broke the school record in our distances. Dave Murray didn't let us race track events together. We ran cross country together, but as for track, I was the lucky one because I started with 800 and 1500. So Joy was moved to the 3000 and the 5000. And the disadvantage for her is that I developed the kick. If she and I had trained for the 800 and the 1500 together and then had, trained for 1500, 3000, Joy and I would have had the exact identical times and cross the finish line together without trying. That's how we were. So I had that shorter distance training to start, which was really nice for me. So I qualified for nationals I think the very first year. I went to Tennessee and Knoxville, whatever year that was. I think that was my first year of nationals. And Joy and I won lobster dinners to qualify. If you qualify for nationals, you win lobster dinners. So we won the lobster dinners two years in a row with our first coach. And then, and I became All-American. I think my second year running cross country.
Was this 82 that you're talking about? Wasn't there just something posted on Facebook with regards to the Knoxville Nationals? Is that where you're talking about?
Well, 78.
I think it was TAC. Oh, 70. Okay.
So 78. I started breaking school records right away, and then was All-American in cross country. I think I was. In the AIAW, which is different than the NCAA, that was the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. It was way more challenging to become All-American than the men faced, in the sense that we had 15 All-American slots, and all the foreign athletes who came in and were recruited could also count as All-American. And then you had Division 3, 2, and 1 plus NEIA all together in one pool. So if you did that, you would understand how tough that gets.
So the pool was a lot bigger than it was for the guys.
Yes, it was much more challenging. And so to be able to become All-American was pretty terrific. But I think I was fearless. Joy and I were fearless because we really didn't compete with anybody. We performed. And so the mindset we have is the one of everyone is on the line we're facing the same direction with the same common goal of doing our best. So you're aligned. And if you're aligned, everyone is part of that beautiful process. And that makes it an inviting environment instead of a combative one. And that is, I think, what really helped us thrive as walk-ons in college.
What kind of times, Joan, were you running by your senior year?
I still have the school record in the mile of 432, I think 431, something like that. And that was indoor. I only had one indoor race. Let's see. I did one indoor race that was Cow Palace, and it was in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's
It was
really
the
cool.
Yeah.
Runner's World. They spelled me Hanson, but we did a road race, and I surprised them with my performance because I finished ahead of Francie Lewis Smith and quite a few other
Was that the
big
5
name
mile?
people. Pardon me?
Is that the 5 mile?
I think so. Whatever
Yeah, yeah.
distance it was,
So what year
it
was
just
that? Was
felt really
1980?
long and insane. Um, was that 81? I think.
81.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
I
81.
was there the year before, so I didn't think we'd met. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, so in 81 I ended up doing that, and it went really well. I finished one of the top I was one of the top finishers. And so then they invited me to do the 3,000 meters indoor because someone else dropped out. And so Greta Weitz won. I think I might have been second. And I broke the AIAW record my first time doing that race indoor. And so that was really, I loved indoor. Oh my gosh. I was designed for indoor with the tight turns and the weaving through people. I loved it. So anyway, that was my first taste of indoor. And the following year, I did a whole season. Like, it was the only time I ever did an indoor season, and I ended up going to nationals and winning it and setting a world record the first time I ever ran the 2 mile. So it was wonderful, but it was a short-lived part of track and field for me.
What was your time for that world record?
9:30 something for a 2 mile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it was 2 mile. It also is sort of amusing. I mean, most of us we can rattle off almost all of our performances. So
Oh, I'm process. For me, process is what is the joy of running.
yeah, it's not the statistics.
Yeah, and I found that the ability to go out and effortlessly run and feel like you're gliding on the ground
Yep.
is enjoyable. And it took about 2 years to go from a hate relationship of running to actually enjoying it, because I finally went from being injured every single week to I just stopped getting injured. And I ran on the track, I ran on the dirt and on grass. And then I would run different directions on the track so that I could balance out myself. And it paid off. I was able to excel and be all American. I don't know, as a walk on, suddenly being able to set school records and collegiate records, and then a world record, and being able to run anything from 800 up to a 10K was fun.
And very motivating when you start seeing success.
Well, it was just motivating because I stopped hurting. I think
Oh
that
yeah,
was
well that's true too. But I mean, the combination of the two, you were enjoying it, and you were willing to work more because you were having success, and it's.
Well, but Benji, this is what's hard for people to figure out with us as twins. Joy and I, we think differently than our hierarchical construct that every country lives by. And as multiples, Joy and I had our own language for the first 5 years of our life. We had twin talk, and it was peer-based. And that peer-based ability allowed us to identify things without a lot of judgment. In better and worse, not thinking better and worse, but the enjoyment of experience things. And so we learned our parents' language. It took us until we were about 5 to start speaking the second language, which was English. And that was comparing the way that we thought as multiples and being cooperative, collaborative, and excelling together, and not trying to beat someone. It was a beautiful way of starting. And so then all of a sudden, here's this hierarchical construct with grades and winning and losing and all this pressure. And we just decided we didn't really want to live that way. And so we don't.
Do you still have twin talk? Do you still have that?
We lost the twin talk, but we still have these incredible experiences, and they just floor people. Like, I'm going to skip to a little story just because it sort of helps to identify this. My dad called me when I was in my 20s, and he said, "Oh," and it was on a landline. And he says, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you two pulled this thing off." I go, "Dad, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, Father's Day card. You two sent me the same card, the same message, and it's time stamped exactly 3 hours apart." And I lived in Seattle at the time, and Joy lived in Philadelphia. And I said, "Well, Dad, we didn't really plan that. you'll have to talk to Joy, but we didn't plan that at all. I just had the card for 2 years, and I wrote a message that, from my heart and mailed it to you from the post office. And so when he talked with Joy, he found out that Joy bought the card that day, wrote the message, and just went into the post office and mailed it. And it was just something that we do. We have a lot of twin nuances that ended up being something that science wanted to research. So Joy and I were research subjects on quite a few different studies. She was a world record holder the same year I was in a totally different sport called modern pentathlon. And that was running, swimming, fencing, pistol shooting, and equestrian jumping. Yep. So we could master things because we were fearless. We didn't really get too intimidated with anything we ever tried. So it was wonderful. And so the fact that we're process minded and performance based, to link arms next to people, as all of us are leaders next to each other to build a better neighborhood, that's our way of looking at track and field or swimming or anything else in life. And so we don't think of a leader and a follower at all, because the leader in front is talking, but the person behind might not understand. And the person behind doesn't have a view because the person in front is blocking them. So what kind of running is that? It's obstructive. So we were very appreciative that for us, it was the process, the results were byproducts, and the relationships with people are what really made it special. And those friendships still to this day, having those really stands out, and why track and field is the way it is for us.
So you went on and you made an Olympic team. So
but it wasn't easy.
No, I wouldn't think it would be easy. But
no, you don't know.
In fact, tell us about it then.
That a lot of people don't know. So in 1982, I was at Kansas State, having transferred from University of Arizona after a degree that was going to occur in a catalog got grabbed by two different schools at U of A, the College of Medicine and the College of Education, and they withheld it going into the catalog. And so I couldn't graduate with the research degree that I wanted to do. So instead, I had 129 units, and there were limited schools that had any kind of research or exercise physiology-based non-PE teaching degree. So I transferred to Manhattan, Kansas State, and was going to take 24 units. And while I was there and acclimating and getting ready to train with Steve Miller, a stalker broke into the home while I was at the library late at night. And I had the master bedroom downstairs, having already broken the world record, being a sponsored athlete with Athletics West. I could fund my living while I went to school. And he went into the room and did things in there, cut me out of pictures, stole some things, and left something for me. And then I left for a week and visited friends in Texas, in Dallas. And when I came back and he realized I was back home, we had changed the locks. He stole the doorknob. And so when the police were telling me this was a new phenomenon in 1982, it was called stalking, and that this guy was fearless and relentless, I ended up realizing right after talking with him that I needed to get out of there to save my roommates' lives as well. So I wrote love letters to all of my family and friends that afternoon and evening. I had a bottle of Bailey's right there. First letter was to Dad, last letter was to John, brother. And I just ended up focusing on them. And the next morning, I took a backpack, put it on my back as though I was going to class. Went into the building, up to the second floor, crossed past the door, out the other side, and took a bus and left all my belongings and started fresh in Dallas, Texas. And Robert Vaughn was there, Francie Leroy Smith, Mary Nisley, Tammy Asian, Becky McClenny, wonderful friends of mine were there. And I ended up lucking out having a great training environment and a great place to live, and changed everything. So once I got there, I had, at Kansas, I had some tendonitis from running on the bricks. In the streets are brick laden. And of course, every step is crooked because the bricks.
You've got to focus the entire time because you might trip if you're not paying attention.
it's just a hard surface. It's not something that I would do well with. So I ended up getting compartment syndrome, posterior compartment syndrome. And you can't cut through those muscles because there's too many different levels of those muscles. And so I had to train a little bit and stop and rest because my foot would drop and not work. And so I ended up getting into the pool. And I was training in the pool, and then I was cleared to get on a bike. So I started training with another person and doing bike workouts. And so in December, I couldn't run. I was in the pool, and this is of 1983. In February of 84, February 10th, I'm out on a bike ride. It's going to be my last one before I can actually get on land and run. And a woman had a bike with baskets on the back of her bike, and she stopped suddenly with no warning. And so I was doing a pace line with another person, and when she stopped, my bike couldn't get past her basket. And so I crashed, fell into the street, broke my tailbone, and went perpendicularly out into the street, couldn't move. It had literally paralyzed me, and a car wheel went by my head by what is that, 6 inches?
Not much.
It's about 6 inches. The car wheel, the whole tire going past my head that close, and I couldn't even move. So I ended up going to the hospital on a spine board. They were able to give me muscle relaxants. I told them I was going to leave the next day since it showed that I didn't have a broken back, just a broken tailbone, and went home. A friend of mine 4 days later said, "Hey, you need to go, let's get you out of the house. Let's go get some groceries." And while we're in the car driving along, a high school student is talking to her friend, and she's in the car to the right of us, and she decides to do a U-turn and doesn't see our car. So she does a U-turn into the side of my door, and it sent me back to the hospital. So 2 accidents in 4 days. And if I move forward, I could finally start running mid-March. And then my first race was at the end of March. This is in 84, you guys. My first race, I went 9:42. That was my first race. So I had qualified for the Olympic trials the previous summer, thank goodness. But 9:42 wasn't going to be any good for the 3,000 meters. And then I was able to just put the perspective of what's the smartest thing I can do today. And whatever the outcome of that is, I'm going to be okay with it, whatever that is. And that's all I did. What's the smartest thing I can do today? And my training and my eating and my not caring, not putting pressure on myself led to me making the Olympic team and running a minute and a second faster, 8:41. So now I'm going towards the Olympics, and no one knows this. My coach and I know this. My pace for that race was going to be 8:42. I went 8:41.3. For the Olympics, my pace was 8:36. And I was on that pace and I would have dipped under 8:36. And I knew it. I had 6 more weeks of training, which was fantastic, and was in much better shape than at the trials. And then when in the race, I didn't realize for decades that there was a woman who had a practice. She had a racing style where she would impede people deliberately. And that was a woman from Portugal by the name of Aurora Cunha. And at the finish of the straightaway on the home stretch, going into a curve, she would dart inside, she would impede somebody, and then drift back and cut out and go forward again. And so it's like a do-si-do move. If you know country western dances, the do-si-do is it's a counterclockwise move that interferes with people. And so she did that in the semifinal, and interfered with Lynn Kanuka Williams and some other athletes, I think Diane Rogers. And then in the Olympic final of the 3,000 meters, she did it with 4 laps to go, and she did it, and I ended up pretty much, she just backed into me. So it started out where she cut in front of me, and then she was in front, and on the inside, she drifted back to me, and I decided to give her the room, so I stepped out, so I was further out for her going into the curve, and then she just stepped right in front of me to get outside of the pack, and my foot landed on her foot, and I went down, and the officials didn't even see it.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't see it. They were too busy watching the race as spectators.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you actually watch the footage, you see her slowing down. No one slows down usually in the curve. People pick up the pace. Anyway, she slowed down, and as she slowed down, I gave her that inside slot. So I'm now more next to her than behind her. And then when she stepped out in front, I mean, she didn't have any room. We're not even talking like a half step. She had absolutely no room at all. And so when her foot was starting to come up off the ground, my foot landed on her foot. That was pretty, that's what you pretty much could say. And she was cutting out to go forward again. So she did the sideways move to move forward. And that would be visible if the officials were actually watching.
Yeah.
And it forced Diane Rogers to not. So Diane is a friend of mine, and I'm so grateful, but it cost her the race too. Yeah. She was going to run over me with her spikes. There was no way. I mean, she was going to literally have at least one full foot on my back with her spikes. And she veered sideways, and it took her out to lane 4. And here the officials are watching. There's a person out there in lane 4, like, is that impeding?
Yeah, I mean, that 3,000 was a jinxed event.
It wasn't it insane? And yeah, Brigitte Krause ended up dropping out because of a lung infection, and we had a lot of casualties in that race.